Yo, so today I'm going to talk about my maladaptive behaviors, which is not easy for me, but hey. Okay, let's go into this mindset where this whole thing, this audio journal, is ours. No pressure, no expectation. It's ours to be truthful. So, what are maladaptive behaviors? At least to me, maladaptive behaviors are like things that you did or did not do in order to de-escalate a situation or to make something like just to make the harm get away from you, what you perceive as harm anyway. And this is a very child sort of thing to do. Not childish, but it's something you did as a child, and eventually they become maladaptive when, you know, the word kind of says it for like explains it, where you do something in order to adapt to a situation, like when you're a child, you are kind of literally kind of helpless, so you just have to do whatever needs to be done to survive, whether it be physically or emotionally, right? And I think a very rudimentary and a very prime example and a simple answer example for a maladaptive behavior can be lying, because when you think about it, when you're a child, if you don't feel safe enough to tell the truth, where if you tell the truth that you messed up somewhere somehow, you get beaten up into a pulp, you'd rather lie and perhaps even continuously lie in order to just it almost like in is like an inevitable thing, because let's say the consequences for you admitting to something like a fuck up, let's say the consequences are dire, at least to you, right? Are painful. And so you had to lie. And eventually, because when the lie kind of cannot hold up, you must lie on top of this other lie, because let's say the lie kind of like, a good one would be the story of Jennifer Pan, right? Or Jennifer Pan, at least, how I pronounce it. It's like she lied that she had great grades because her parents just, had this pressure on her to get all A's all the time or something. And eventually she got not all A's, but she had to lie to her parents in order to, you know, she just felt so terrified that they'll find out that she didn't get great grades. So she actually forged her, you know, report cards and all that. And because she was already depressed, let's say, and she was already anxious and all that, after that lie, she did not maybe put enough effort because of maybe depression or something, or she did not manage to patch up that lie by actually getting real A's and shit. And that's why she needed more lies. Oh, I'm smiling because my lips seems to be lopsided. Maybe it's because of me scowling too much. Huh. Well, so again, this is a prime example. Maybe pathological lying comes from a very broken childhood. You know, it comes to my attention sometimes that a lot of things, when you're after having a first impression or raw impression or something, I do advise people to step back a bit, think about it for a while before going back on it. Because, like, you remember that bottle experiment where they poked three holes in different heights and taped over them, and they put in front of someone, whether a child or an adult, and say, take off a tape, which one will spurt further? And a lot of them will choose the top hole. And the answer, of course, is the bottom hole. You take off the tape and the water just shoots out because of pressure, right? And of course, again, initial sort of raw impression. And that goes, I think, with also a lot of Asian parents, how they not love, but how they tend to just release their ire upon their children. And just like how it feels good and logical to just berate someone who's actually depressed by saying that you should be more proactive, you should be more this, and you should be more that. Well, it's probably literally the literal worst thing that you can say to them because it doesn't help, it only adds upon the worthlessness that they feel. Again, maladaptive behaviors. They tend to go on tangents a lot. So, maladaptive behaviors. My maladaptive behavior in general is just a lot of passiveness because what happened to me, and it's not as bad and as apparent as some of other people's stories are. And sometimes, and I'll just say this before anything, is that sometimes, and I know this sounds bad, but sometimes I did wish that my quote unquote abuse, or let's just say this, sometimes I wish that my parents would be actually malignantly, maliciously abusive, so that at least I could kind of like identify this easier, and I could kind of have this hatred, the fire boiling, like festering in my heart, and that fire will light a fire on my under my ass in order to just get out of there. But in my case, and I think in also a lot of other children's cases, is that these quote unquote abuse, I don't know, are more subtle, in which you don't really like know. And so there's almost this hope in your heart for whatever reason. Maybe they'll change, or maybe if I'm just more hardworking, or maybe just do more or do enough. Maybe I studied, like, gotten more A's, studied a little harder. Maybe they would have shown more affection towards me, or maybe they wouldn't have so many bad things to say. Again, when I say bad things, you Asians out there know what I'm talking about. When you're in junior year, you get all A's, they'll scoff and say, it's just junior. Wait till you're in like a senior's level or something. Or when you get some sort of good grade in school, they will just say something like, don't get too cocky or something, or just random comments of the day, or how you just this, or poking at that. You know how Asian parents are. So my maladaptive behavior is passiveness, and that is, I guess, exposition. Is that again, like many Asian households, all I remember my childhood and teenage years. All I remember about those years are a lot of misery and a lot of studying, which at a certain point I didn't really do. And again, that is the passiveness right there. Eventually, at a very early age, I just gave up studying. It's like I don't give a shit in a way. And that is like, I guess, another maladaptive behavior, if you will, because, and I can explain this, I think, is, you know, learning after a certain while, and when you enter like primary school or elementary school, depending on where you're from, whatever you call it, it went from genuine learning to grades pretty darn quick, like just a switch. And I immediately noticed that my parents would just, it's all about grades, you know. And eventually well, me at least, I noticed this just almost a cycle, I guess, of just getting great grades and they're happy and, you know, that's all there is to life. And they'll start talking about, getting great grades and getting into great high school, getting great grades there too, and great university. And then you come out having a great job and you have great money. And they also quote that they were poor and so that they have to work hard now so that we could have this opportunity, this golden ticket, this life that they never had or something. And it's just such a huge weight too. And at that point, at 7, 8, 9, you don't even like, because at about 7, 8, or 9, I was already feeling disillusioned, you know. Because it's just this cycle of getting great grades and parents are happy. And then you're like, okay, this is all there is to my life. And again, remember how they said that, oh, you have to go to a great school and great university. And this was like something that's decades, literally decades into the future. And if this was how life, well, back then when I was like 8 or 9, and if this is how it is like now, and it's going to, naturally get even harder in the future, like what is the point of this? And I forgot to mention is that I forgot to mention that I got straight A's, parents happy. Maybe they give me a gift or two when I get above 95 or something. It's almost like I use my marks, my grades, in order to buy gifts and rewards. And ultimately, there's this emptiness because this is hard to say because then again, how would I have known? Because when I was a kid, that was all I was allowed to do. Study, great grades, after school, more tuition classes. I was already disillusioned with like again, there's this like it all seems so fine and dandy from the outside, doesn't it? Great grades. But how about the child? I remember how they gave me the side eye when I tried to play something. God damn. It's just like I keep shaking my head now, but it's just like you. So my maladaptive behavior eventually, because I figured out these things in a way, where I feel this emptiness inside. And yet I've been told that this is all there is to life, and this is how it was. You should be happy. holy shit, did I went to a downward spiral. As in, I went from a straight A to a straight F. I didn't give a. It's almost like looking back at myself, I didn't give a shit no more. Because again, if this is how like I was supposed to be happy, like of course, as you might have guessed, I wasn't happy. I felt empty. And again, if there's a God somewhere, somehow, sometimes I curse at him for putting the creative me into this generation and this sort of Asian parent because they ain't having it, you know. Being creative was a curse. I have to stomp down and shatter that. And even now, I can't partake in any of my talents, lest I want to be physically sick and mentally drained. And it's hard to explain. Honestly, it is. So, my maladaptive behavior is just to conform, to obey, and to. It's almost like stagnation, where you kind of freeze in place and you don't really go back or progress. And that is why still feel like I'm 15 when it comes to maybe social interaction effectiveness or something. I think I'm quite mature, like overly mature in some ways and infantilized in some others. So my maladaptive behavior again is just to be passive because it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't, you know? It's like I feel all this emotional turmoil already back then and thinking about this like future, which is not really a future that I want. So you want me to study my ass off in something that I do not care about, blah 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 blah, and and they honestly they keep telling you about the future, about how you have to do this, you have to do that, like go to a great university, great job, blah blah blah, and it just became like noise, white noise. I just didn't want it, you know. That's probably that probably stems from, I guess, some places where throughout all my life I don't feel like I had a choice. It's always what they wanted because it's like I get it still. Like, yeah, it doesn't matter anyway, right? I get it. They come from a time where they don't choose really what they want to do. They just do it, earn money, and that's happiness right there as long as you have money. And that is why when you say you're creative and you want to earn your keep by creative ventures or whatnot, no, they won't be having that. They want you to be a professional, as they call it. A doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or a disgrace to the family, as the meme and the joke goes. And yeah, I went to one of these routes, unfortunately, eventually, because I conformed and do what needed to be done. Like, it's not even that. I don't know how to explain it, you know. It's like you just give up yourself because the pain, the emotional turmoil, the emotional pain is too great. And I kind of can get where I was coming from because, again, I don't feel like I have a choice. It's always study hard Which again, it's hard to talk about because what's so bad about, you know, graduating with a good degree, with a great result? Like, what's so bad about that, right? But ultimately, I think what's so bad about it is that, again, our parents don't think it's something bad. Because again, degree good. But ultimately, what's bad about it when you think about it, you know, even if a degree is objectively good, how about the person that's studying it, you know? I never wanted to be a lawyer. That's like the furthest thing, literally the furthest thing from creative energy and whatnot. And I feel like such like a betrayer. Like, I feel like such a traitor to myself. And I guess that's partially where the hatred for myself comes from. I never felt like I had the right to complain or to say that I feel bad because, of course, boomer Asian parents who were born in poverty stricken households who wanted to go to universities but couldn't because of poverty. And on top of that, they also kind of founded their own business from scratch. And to these people who had experiences like this under their belt, it's almost like it's actually impossible to tell them about anything that they will not fire back with. We had it worse. We went through this, so you didn't have to. So, like, what reason and what right do you have to be unhappy? So, eventually, my maladaptive behavior surfaced, which is I just didn't do anything aside from what needed to be done, which I, again, done with haphazard sort of, not effort, but haphazard sort of result, I guess, because if you're not mentally healthy, like you do things in a sloppy manner or you feel emotional turmoil, you just want this to be over with. And that doesn't necessarily translate to great results. First class degree, A's, A's, A's across the board. No, right? So my maladaptive behavior has persisted where, oh yeah, when you're depressed and you're just like overwhelmed and you're just hopeless, it can manifest in people can see it as laziness, not being proactive, being like again, a lazy ass, just loitering around all day. While you, while the reality is that you genuinely don't know what to do with your life because you slaved your life away for the vision of success. And then you come out trying to find a job and it didn't work out that way and your confidence is shattered already even before the, you know, job search. You don't feel like you're worth shit. And of course, there's always the constant put downs, which they think is helpful. Because again, it's our job to tell you the truth while no one else would. Because it's their society's norm and borderline job to just butter up to you in order to take advantage of you. Or, you know, it's just how society works. So imagine being conditioned like that. when you're already feeling empty from all these like great chasing ventures and being told that like already having this idea in your head that wow, if this is my life now and I'm supposed to be happy now and I'm feeling so empty and depressed, imagine decades into the future, literally like literal decades where there's high school, or do you call it middle school? I don't know, but high school, and then there's university, and you have to go through like that that long of a time of this emptiness, and it's gonna get harder. And so my maladaptive behavior manifested by just, you know what, fuck. Fuck it. And of course, I didn't actually say fuck it, but I guess subconsciously I did, where I just eventually stopped pursuing my academics like as diligently anymore. I actually just like, it's almost like a throw in a towel that I did not even realize my mind was doing. Subconscious mind is a powerful thing, you know. I even wanted to have this sort of spark or feeling or whatnot. When I first entered high school as a junior, I was like so afraid because I was like, yeah, this is a new beginning. I want to do this. Like, at the same time, I know inside my soul, here in my chest, I just didn't have the energy or the desire to study anymore. And this school thing is just something I had to trudge through, you know. And again, staying passive, stagnant, is my way of coping with things. And that probably appears to other people as procrastination, which is very understandable. Very. I wonder if I listen back to this, if I'll realize something, you know. And I hate to ask people for help until it's literally kind of too late, because again, when I ask for something, it's always like I feel like such a burden. I do. And people were, I also ask help, you know, from, of course, from your own family, because that's all you have access to, and they don't really take too kindly to that, too. How unfortunate, huh? So again, I feel trapped. And that is why damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like emotional turmoil also counts as, you know, the consequence of damned if you whatever. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that is why I'm just stagnant. It's almost like I'm forced to freeze. And again, you know, as an adult, it's probably very childish and I get it, but again, maladaptive behavior is not exactly something that's positive. Let's just say that. I can't believe, like, looking at myself through this webcam right now, I can't fucking believe I'm actually talking to this microphone, looking at myself, and not actually hating my appearance that much. If I listen back to this, looking at this face, listening to this voice and these lips sinking to this voice, like, what would I feel and what would I gain from this and what will I finally understand? Will I have an epiphany? This sucks. It really does. But this has been my maladaptive behavior for a long time. Because all my life, a lot of things. Even in conversations or something, I don't think I have a choice, even now. You either listen or you listen. There's no other choices. You listen and you say yes, oh, uh-huh, mm. If they berate you, you have to take it. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, of course. It's just, geez. I guess I'll end the recording here. I'm gonna force myself to say that I'm happy with this recording because, again, my eyes are drooping because my mind is trying to shut myself off from talking about these things because they are emotionally very hurtful. It hasn't sunken in yet, but I know it's emotionally very draining. That is why this is one of the biological functions. My head actually makes me want to sleep. It's like a superpower, huh? Okay, I'll stop right here. No expectations, no judgment.